about raising cattle for meat, raising your own cattle. You may want to do the pros and cons on it before you get started on your own place. A lot of people are getting into raising their own meat nowadays because, or buying from somebody that they know who raised it themselves, because quite frankly, there is so much crap in the food that we eat. I want to give a shout out to Food Inc. If y'all have not watched any of the documentaries on the food that's in our supply now, Food Inc., GMO, OMG, that would be GMO, like oh my God, that's another one. But Food Inc., it will go through mainly the meat industry and how the animals are processed, and I'm totally convinced that there's more crap in our food supply than we can even get in a documentary. I have seen and heard from people behind the scenes. I mean, I know people who have worked in cereal plants who said the cockroaches are like the size of your hand. I know people that have worked in fast food restaurants, and you know the meat comes in labeled grade D but edible. What's up with that? I mean, what the hell is grade D? What the hell is grade D? Eyeballs, brains, intestines, all the stuff that they can mask by grinding up and putting into some type of mush meat like Spam. I mean, you are what you eat, people. Hey, Wheat Tree. So this is going to be about raising your own cattle. I've raised my own cattle for about 10 years, and this is going to go over the pros, the cons. Basically, there's several different breeds of cattle, okay, when you talk about raising your own meat cows. There's Herefords, there's Black Angus, and that's really the most popular one. That's the easiest to come by. They're very expensive because of the name, but there's Charolais. Here where we live, Black Angus, Hereford, Charolais, or there's Piedmontese. That's a double muscled. That's a one that, okay, I have some Mennonite friends in Tennessee, and they happen to raise the Piedmontese. They then turn around and sell that to larger companies that distribute it on the organic market. One of the people that buy their Piedmontese meat is Laura's beef. So I feel pretty safe about buying Laura's beef if I buy beef in the store. The only thing is it's very expensive and it's hard to come by. Where I'm at, Laura's beef is not even on the store shelves in Mississippi. So I could buy it in Memphis. I could buy it in certain places in Tennessee, but I can't buy it here. Piedmontese is a brand of meat cow that has double the muscle mass, but it doesn't get hormone injected. It's not any kind of genetically modified. You could call it a hybrid from several years of crossing certain cattle to get this perfect double muscle meat cow. But if you're looking for grass-fed and you're looking for a good price, the best thing to do is raise it yourself. So let's talk about the most common types of meat cows that you'll find, and that's Black Angus, Hereford, and Charolais. Really and truly, if you talk to one person, they're going to say Hereford or Charolais. If you talk to another person, they're going to say Black Angus. It is easier to find the Black Angus. They are the most popular and have been since the 90s big Got Beef promotions. So they're the easiest to come by, and they're most likely what you'll find if you go looking for a meat cow. Now, in talking about raising your cows, are you looking at raising for money? Because you can buy up a few calves, raise them up, sell, let's just say you could buy 3. Raise them up, sell 2, put 1 in the freezer, and you are raising your own meat for free. I'm sorry, for whatever reason, the phone may glitch a little bit. For whatever reason, I don't know what's going on with the phone. But you could do that. That is a way to break even or even come out ahead. I'm going to give you prices. when you raise your own cow, your end goal should be a healthier product as well as a good price. So this is what happened with my last one that we put in the freezer, and this has been a typical turnaround for the cows I've raised. I bought the calf for $500. She was already about 500 pounds. Raised her up for 2 more years. She was about 6 months old. Raised her up till she was 2.5. Put her in the freezer. And we're going to talk about age to slaughter as well. Hey, everybody. I'm in my zone, so I'm not going to call everybody out by name, but thank y'all for joining us. So buying your calves as soon as they're weaned. Do not buy a calf that has not been on its mama. Some people get taken and they think, oh, I'll buy this calf really cheap. A calf needs to be on its mama for at least 3 to 4 months. Some farmers will tell you 6 months to get the proper nutrition. If you buy a cow that has to be bottle fed, you are going to be in the hole. The milk replacer is $50 for a 50-pound bag, and it takes 1 bag per week to feed a calf, sometimes 2 as they get larger. If you take them off the milk replacer at an early age and you try to feed them just grain, or if they will not take the milk replacer, you will end up with a stunted cow. We did have one that happened to. She would not take the milk replacer, so we gave her grains. She ended up stunted. So they cannot get the nutrition that they need to build those huge bones and those huge bodies unless they have their mama's milk. So if you buy a cow that needs milk replacer, a lot of times some farmers will even give away their orphan cows so they don't have to feed them, because the cost is not anywhere near reasonable. So do not even take on a bottle calf. Do not do it. It is a waste of time and a waste of money if you're looking to come out ahead, okay? If you have a milk cow, then you can take on an orphan calf. But if you don't have a milk cow and not milk goats, goats do not supply enough milk to keep up with what a calf needs. Oftentimes, dairies will sell off their calves. You have to be careful. This is another thing to look for. When buying calves, do not buy a heifer calf from a dairy. Oftentimes it's a free martin and she cannot be bred. So that's the only reason why a dairy would sell off their heifer calves, is because she's unbreedable. A free martin is one that is a twin. So it was born at the same time in gestation as a male. And the male chromosome crossed over, and it creates an inability in the female to produce the female organs as she's growing in the womb. So she cannot breed. So if you buy a female from a dairy as a calf, it's often a free martin, and it was born alongside of a male. It was a twin, and they know it's not going to be breedable. And if they can't breed, they can't milk. So, and we could cover more on that in our discussion on raising milk cows. But that is, some people will buy a milk cow to raise for meat. I'm just letting you know the pros and cons. Another thing is those milk cows tend to be more bony, so it's not a good option unless it's at least a cross. It could be a cross with a Guernsey, a Holstein, crossed with a Jersey, crossed with whatever, a brown Swiss. It could be crossed with a milk cow, but if it's full-blooded milk cow, you're going to get less meat than you would want on your turnaround for your money, for your profit that you invest. Now, your goal is to stay around or under $3 a pound. And the reason why I say this is because your goal is to beat the store. You want to stay under $3 a pound or right at in your end pricing. So the last cow, I'm going to use this last cow we put in the freezer as an example. She was $500 total when I bought her as a calf. By the time we fed her, raised her up, and put her in all the slaughter fees, we put $1,410 into her. Now, she was a 1,400 pound cow. She topped the scales. The butcher said she had to be 1,400 pounds because his scales topped out at like 1,300 and she was over that. So he was pretty, he's been a butcher for 50 years, so I'm sure he knew what he was talking about. He guesstimated 1,400 pounds. Of that 1,400 pounds total weight, her dressed weight was 714, which that's about right, half. The meat we brought home was 600 pounds, okay? So we put $1,410 into her. That's about $1 a pound, and that's about right. You don't want to go over $1 a pound, because if you would have sold her off, that's what she would be worth, is about $1 a pound on hoof. So that's a good end number. So we put $1,410 into her total. When we got back our meat, we got back somewhere between 570 and 600 pounds. So we're still eating on her. So I'm going to say that she's more likely 600 pounds. We kind of lost count. But if we take that 1,410 and we divide that by the meat we got back, now that is steaks. I'm telling you, she had some steaks on her. We have been eating steaks and eating steaks. That is rump roast. That is chuck roast. That is everything you would buy at the store that you can get off of a cow. That is ground beef. I mean, we probably got 200 pounds in ground beef. Easy. Maybe 3. We've been eating ground beef just out of our ears. But that $1,410 divided by the $600 pounds that we got back, that gives us $235 a pound, and that is about exactly what I figured when we got her back from the slaughterhouse. The video of us having her on the trailer, taking her to slaughter, got removed from YouTube because of a lot of animal rights activists. So, but we raised her up, and she was a Black Angus. And I have raised up others and put them in the freezer that were mixed breeds, that were half Black Angus, half Jersey, half Black Angus, half Holstein. And I'll be honest with you, those mixes, those half breeds, they make the best mamas. Because if you take a half breed, if you take a breed that's, let's say, a milk and a meat, half Jersey, half Angus, and you breed that to a meat cow, she's going to have thicker, richer milk to feed the baby. So if you can at all possible, if you're raising your own herds, get those milk meat mamas to breed for your own succession. You know what I'm saying? So that you can come up with your own perfect, well-nourished meat cows to put in the freezer. Those have been the best, but we've put several in the freezer. Another thing I want to talk about is selling your meat cows or selling your cows. When you take them to the sale barn, your goal is to get $1 a pound. If you sold them to a person, you're going to come out better off, because there are some more people out there who are looking for someone else who has raised that animal to and will pay that $1 a pound versus taking them to the sale barn. Sale barns are going to give you the lowest dollar possible. And the reason is because most of the people there at the sale barn are dumping sick animals. And so they're assuming that everybody's in the same boat. They're not going to give top dollar. So that's the worst place that you can take your animal to get rid of it. And also the worst place that you can take your animal, go for buying your animals. So if you have farmers around you, don't be bashful. Walk right up to them and ask them if they have calves and if they would sell you a calf. Because to load that calf up and take it to the sale barn is X amount of time and money. And they're only going to get not even $1 a pound. If you're willing to pay them $1 a pound for that calf, they'd gladly sell it to you. They don't have to do any work, and they're getting that assured $1 a pound amount versus taking it to the sale barn and they might get 55, 65 cents a pound. So I know a lot of good farmers out there that sell their cows to the sale barn. They take their calves and they sell them because the corporate industry comes in there and buys those cows to fatten up. So I know a lot of good farmers that sell their calves at the sale barn because there isn't any other option but they would gladly sell to a homesteader who's willing to pay $1 a pound and get a healthy meat cow. And like I said, I paid $1 a pound for the last one I put in the freezer, and that's pretty much what the going rate is when you're buying person to person. Sometimes it'll be that at the sale barn. Sometimes it will go up a little bit higher than that, but not usually. Usually you're under $1 a pound, around 75 cents a pound. So anywhere from 55 to 75 cents a pound. So let's say you wanted to raise up your own meat cow and you are just starting out. The best thing to do is to fence in. You need about 2 acres per cow. 1.5 acres will work. That is for one cow. Where we are, we're in Mississippi. The grass is plentiful. There are tons of wild weeds out there that they will eat. And so that is a top-notch good estimate for where we are in the Southeast, 1.5 acres to 2 acres. If you are out west, or if you are in the Northwest, it's going to be totally different. It can be up to 20 acres per cow, depending on what the grass is like, how plentiful it is, whether you have weeds or not. So an average guesstimate for, let's just say, the Midwest on down is at 1.5 to 2 acres per cow. But once you get into Texas, once you get into the hills, like in Tennessee, Arkansas, your terrain is going to determine how much area you're going to need for that animal. Now, let's go into the next thing I wanted to talk about. I'm sorry. When you are bringing that cow home, when you have your meat, if you can stay under that $3 per pound on what your return was. So our return was 600 pounds of meat, and we were right at $235 to $240 a pound. You've got to include the hay, and you've got to include any feed. Now, the goal is to have a grass-fed cow, and the reason is because the nutrients from grass-fed cows are higher in their meat, in their milk, and in the butter, all of that. So whether it's a milk or a meat cow, you want them grass-fed as much as possible. Here's your options to keep them grass-fed. You want to make sure that you either offer them grass all year long that is vibrant, healthy, and nutritious, and you can do rotational grazing, or you supply them with a high-protein hay. Alfalfa is one that is popular, but it's also, a lot of it is genetically modified. And if anybody wanted to get in touch with a farmer that grows organic alfalfa hay, I know one in Tennessee. And I can get you, if you wanted to contact me via email, I can get you his number. But most farmers that are growing alfalfa are growing GMO alfalfa. A top-notch mixture of fescue, of Bermuda, of those grasses, those will, if the ground is fertile, produce a top-notch high-protein hay as well. You don't have to have the alfalfa. Most people think that that's what they want, but if that's all that's out there and it's GMO, it would be better to feed them Bermuda. Do you see what I'm saying? The hay that you feed your cows through the wintertime will determine their health. So you have to make sure that when they're not on the green spring grass or the summer grass, that they're still getting a good high protein hay. You may pay a little bit more for it, but you're still probably never going to cross that end $3 a pound mark. It would be better to buy good hay, because the vitamin B and mainly vitamin B, but the other vitamins and nutrients that you're getting from your animals when you eat their meat are nowhere near as good when they're having that high protein hay and that spring, those green grasses from spring and summer. I suggest that people read up there's a book called Nourishing Traditions, but there's also several other people. Sally Fallon is one, Dr. Weston Price. All of those people have done these studies, and the nutrients on the grass-fed cattle is over the top versus these grain-fed cattle. Now, here's the thing. Cattle have the ability in their gut to process both grains and grasses. But what happens is there's a bacteria needed to break down the grain. And it's hard for them to go back and forth. So when you're doing both, it can actually throw their gut system off. The grains were not meant to be an all the time feed for the cattle. When you process your cattle, you're going to get about a 45 cent per cent, not cent, 45% return on their meat. So if you took a 1,000-pound cow to slaughter, you're going to get about 45% of that back in meat, which would be 450 pounds on a 1,000-pound cow. Now, a lot of people will say, oh no, you should get back 55% of that or 65% of that in meat. If you're using hormones and you're feeding them grains, you will get back 55 to 65% of that cow in meat to put in the freezer or can or whatever you do with it. If you're doing a grass-fed cow, you're only going to get back about 45% of that cow's total weight in meat. So we took a 1,400-pound cow to slaughter. We got about 600 pounds of meat back, somewhere between 575 and 600 pounds. So don't expect as much back when they're grass-fed as when they're grain-fed. But most of that extra that makes up the difference is just fat. So the marbleization is nice on the meat, but it's just fat. And so you're not really doing yourself or the cow much better to put them on grains and fatten them up, so to speak, because that meat is not necessarily, well, the reason why the difference is because when they say 55 to 65% of the total weight coming back to you, it's mainly because the farmers have fed them hormones and grains, if that makes sense. So if you're doing a grass-fed cow, they're not going to be as big and bulky. They can be a nice size, but they're not going to be this enormous fat cow that you would get using the other processes of feeding them, such as giving them grains, such as using hormones. So I hope that makes sense. You don't need all of that extra fat on the cow for it to have good flavor, for it to be a nice cow, for it to be marbled. You don't really need all of that. I do know some people who will grass feed a cow and then the last 2 months before it goes to slaughter will feed it lots of corn, lots of grains to put some marbleization in there. And that's an option, but you know all those grains are GMO. So the very best for your health and cost, because you're dumping all that extra cost in there and it's really just going into fat. So the very best for your health and for cost is in the grass-fed. Now, we have given our cows grain at certain times, but it was more of a treat, not because we were trying to bulk them up or we thought they needed it. Back to your pasture. So let's go back to feed. When you're feeding them grass and their gut is mainly eating grass and you throw some grains in on them, it throws their gut flora out of whack. They can take it. They were made to process it. But if any of y'all are familiar with goats and cows getting bloat, it can sour their stomach, so to speak, and cause things like acidosis, which is bloat. They're a lot more likely to get acidosis in springtime when the sugars are real high in the grass. But if you throw grains in there on them, that can happen. So the grass is just the best. If they have grains every once in a while, it's not going to kill them. It's not going to hurt them. But that's the difference in raising your own animals and them coming from a corporate feedlot. That's all they feed them is grains. And so they aren't even able to absorb all the nutrients that they need to develop a healthy system. So they're only getting these GMO grains, and it's just pumping them and pumping them and pumping them bigger and bigger and bigger, but they're not healthy. It's kind of like taking your kid to McDonald's all the time. They're getting food in their mouths and they're getting fatter and fatter and fatter, but they're not healthy and they're not getting any nutrition out of that food. So think of those cows as more like kids that are overweight who eat a lot of McDonald's. It's not going to be passed along to you as well versus the grass-fed that you get. Now, let's talk about grass in the wintertime. There are plenty of ways to keep your cows eating grass even in the wintertime. And I played with this idea before, rotational grazing. You can, and there's plenty of people on YouTube that have their cows in this form, and I'm thinking that further along that we get here in where our cows are in this pasture, I'm thinking we could do this. It's not hard at all. I played around with it in my other garden. If y'all go back and watch some of my older YouTubes, I would turn my cows into the garden. I would plant winter crops for them. Turnip greens, mustard greens, kale, spinach, winter wheat, winter rye, clover. I would put all that stuff that grows in the cool weather out there in my garden. I tilled up the garden, the huge garden, about an acre garden, maybe an acre and a half. Tilled it up, put all the seeds out there, shut the gate, give it time to grow up. Once it grows up to about 8 inches, it needs to be 6 to 8 inches at least. Open the gates, turn those cows in there, let them eat that down to about 3 or 4 inches. Don't let them eat it down to the nub. Pull them off of that and let it grow back up. All of these crops are renewable, so to speak, so they will still, continue to grow. And you can do that even if you don't do the whole pasture. You can do that in sections. Yes, you're exactly right. Who is that? I'm sorry, somebody just mentioned E. coli. Yes, it's because of E. coli that it's unsafe to feed cows grains constantly. That is exactly right. I think it's Larson Family Homestead. My tripod is in the way. But listen, they are absolutely correct. That is where E. coli comes from. It's from overfeeding the cows the grains. So when you get this processed meat, that's where that, and it's full of all this disease. It's because of the overuse of grains in the animals. The bacteria in their gut, just like our flora gets thrown off, theirs does too, and that is what develops. E. coli is what is produced. Now, back to rotational grazing. Winter wheat and winter rye and clover, those things that have not been GMO'd, those things are awesome to put out in your pasture. That's what we did this year. We didn't rotational graze, but Ben's daddy went out there and he planted, he does it for his hay fields anyway to keep them nice and lush and thick, but he went out there in the pasture for the animals and planted tons of winter wheat and winter rye so that they would have some green grass to eat on even in the wintertime. Where we are in the South, it doesn't get incredibly cold, so those things grow all winter long pretty much, unless we get a snow or the temperature gets below freezing and stays there a while. Our cows have green grass all year. So whether you do it in a rotational fashion and you like to mob graze, or you just threw it out there in the pasture and let them eat it, that is an awesome way to get those B vitamins and those other phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are those nutrients that are only available to plants that are absorbing sunlight. So phyto from the sun, okay, like photosynthesis, that all of those phytonutrients are only developed in those plant items that are getting sunlight, such as grass, such as hay. They're not in the seed heads unless they're sprouted, so that's another thing. Unless they're getting that sunlight, they need those things in order for you to get the nutrients you need. Now, let's go back to cost. 45% is about all you're going to get on a grass-fed cow, but you're still going to be usually under that $3 mark. I've never been over that $3 mark. I don't think I've ever crossed over $3 a pound, but it's always been healthy cow meat, a healthy way they were fed, and that kind of thing. Does anybody have any questions? And I'd be happy to answer some questions at this point. We're at the 29-minute mark. And I try to do these live, so if anybody has questions, because there may be somebody that has a question, I didn't cover the certain thing, but we've been raising cows for like 10 years now, so I've got a good bit under my belt that I can share if you have any questions. But I would say definitely keep them eating grass all year long if you can, and throw that winter wheat and that winter rye out there for them, or plant it in a garden where they can come eat and poop. They're fertilizing your garden for you, as well as, building up their B vitamin content and yours as well. Anybody got any questions? I saw something, but let's see if I can, there. I'm trying to use this tripod and it blocks my view of the chat. So I didn't get to say hello to everybody. It looks like I saw Virginia Gibson in here. I know Wheat Tree's in here. Samantha Taylor. Sorry, y'all, I didn't say hello to everybody. My view was blocked. M. Ray. All right, what is the butcher cost these days? All right, the way our butcher runs it, and every butcher is different, the way our butcher does it is you've got an initial fee, a kill fee, which is like usually $5 because they're using a bullet. Then there's the once they call you with the dressed weight, which is, it's X amount of cents per pound. So I want to say I spent on putting Star was her name, on her slaughter fee, her entire slaughter fee, I think it was about $350. So that was a 1,400 pound cow slaughtered for $350. They charge you per dressed weight. And here's what dressed weight is. Dressed weight is all of the skin off, the head off, the guts out, and it's a hanging weight, but it still has some bones in there. So when they do that dressed weight, it's usually half of the total weight, which ours was. It was 710, our dressed weight. And so they charge you a cent amount per dressed weight. And I don't remember what the cent was. I think it's like 35 cents or 40 cents per pound. Some people may be way more expensive than that, but where we are, we have a really good butcher with a good price. But I think the total was like $350 to put 600 pounds of meat in the freezer. And again, I included her cost at when I bought her, $500, all the hay and cost of feeding her, and her slaughter fee, and we put out $1,410. So $1,410 divided by that 600 pounds of meat that got put in the freezer, you're looking at $235. $239 if it was 5 something. But I figure we got about 600 pounds back. Only expect about 45% of your total weight back. But they're going to charge you on dressed weight, and that is including bones. Now, don't forget to ask for your bones. That's another thing. When you're raising your own grass-fed cattle, make sure you get those bones, because that's what you make your broths with. And a lot of people who haven't raised cows before forget that. And they go, and I did that the first couple of times. I was like, I forgot my bones. That's where you get all your good bone broth. That's where all the collagen is. So the bone marrow and all that. So roast those bones, and then make sure you can that broth. Anyone know offhand a going price or ton for orchard grass and haylage? Well, I saw RC. I'm not sure what you're looking for. So all I can say is, if you're looking for a good hay, Ben's Daddy has some of the best hay in the state. It was tested at 12.5% protein. Unless you're going to grow your own crop of sun hemp, that's a good crop to grow for cows and goats and sheep. That has like 25% protein. But to get a raw, good, hey Stephanie News! To get a good raw hay with a high protein is hard to come by. So they're selling their bales. So if you're interested in any of that, now they do haylage. They do that. The wrapped hay, they do that as well. but they're sold out of that. All they have left is their round bales and their 4x5s. But they do haylage, and if anybody wants haylage, you can get on the list. But that's something that they sell for to large farmers, and it's, you know, you kind of got to get on a list to get some of that. All right, I'm going to try to keep up with the chat here. All right. The peace of mind of knowing what you're eating is priceless. Absolutely, Larson Family Homestead. That is probably my biggest thing. There's a cost benefit, there's a health benefit, and people don't realize that it's pay me now or pay me later. You're either going to spend money at the hospital, the doctor's office, or you're going to spend money on growing your own food. Now, here's where you get out better growing your own food. You're having to do work, and so your body is going to be better in that area too, because not only is your food going to be healthier, but you get exercise, you get peacefulness being in God's creation. There is a sereneness to going out there and spending time with the animals. You get so much more reward from it than just going to a grocery store and checking out. Some of that to me is way more important than just checking out at the grocery store. Having that peace of mind, like you said, for health purposes, but also just the environment. When you go out there and hang out with cows, it is one of the most soothing things you could do. Does anybody else have any questions on, let's see, RC, like I said, haylage, if you wanted to look us up and email me, you can do that if you wanted to come get it. He delivers if you're getting large amounts. Oh, okay. Okay. Looking to see how much. Okay. I know most of the time the guys doing hay last year. All right, that's a good one. Last year hay was in abundance. So normally when guys would get $40 to $50 a round bale, it dropped to about $35 a round bale. So the price when there's an abundance, of course, drops because of supply and demand. So that's all I do know. I know plenty of farmers that were getting $40 to $50 a round bale, and they're now only getting about $35 a round bale because last year hay produced in abundance everywhere. It was, I mean, you couldn't, Ben's family usually puts up anywhere 5,000 to 6,000 bales, and last year they put up 8. So it almost doubled. So it depending on, that's what they're getting per bale, but I don't know how much they get per acre. That's always going to depend on fertilization of the soil and the rain. You're going to get more the more fertile the soil is, plus more rain. So that's, you know, it's always going to depend on those two things, fertilization and rain. Get a lot of rain, get a lot of hay. That's how that works. Go through a dry spell, and then hay's in want, and the price goes up. Let me see. Hey, Papa Truck. I was very glad to meet you. I met Papa Truck Prepstetter and his amazing son at the gathering with Deep South Homestead in Wiggins. And that boy is going to be something else. He was getting them heirloom seeds and he was putting them away. And I said, now, are you really going to grow them? He's like, yeah. And he had his t-shirt on, and he was very knowledgeable about things that most kids aren't knowledgeable about. He was impressive. That boy is going to be an awesome man. You are doing a fine job with that young man. All right. Let's see. RC says they just run a mower conditioner and take the fresh cut grass for the haylage. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, you have to ask Ben about all that. I have no idea. I don't have any idea I just know he talks sometimes about how much they put in the barn, prices, what determines a good year versus a bad year, but I don't know specifics. I know he feeds our cows. And I know his daddy did put, this year I've had to do less with our cows because they've been so willing to help and do. Before I did pretty much all of that myself. So it's been a blessing being married to him. Anybody else got any questions on the cattle, for raising your own cows for meat? Again, if you're in the Southeast, you probably only need 1.5 acres to 2 acres for one cow. Make sure they have a good high protein hay. Not grains, not so much, because you know they're all GMO. It can produce E. coli in the gut. Oh, one more thing. Hey, KK, it was so nice to meet you. I'm loving now being able to put faces to names when y'all come up in the chat, and I'm like, aha, now I know exactly who that was. It's so nice to meet y'all in person. It was very awesome to be at that gathering with Danny and Wanda. Meeting Danny and Wanda in person, they are the same in person as they are on YouTube. Danny is very reserved. He's very careful with his speech. It was awesome to be able to spend time with them and all the other homesteaders. Finally get to see what they're like. And I have to say, everybody's pretty real. Everybody's the same as they are on YouTube. Never mind. I'll keep my mouth shut. Anyway, it was an awesome time. We had an awesome time. And the fellowship that we had together, and the praising of God that Danny did, his sermon, it was just amazing. Top notch. He's just a real man of God. And my husband, Ben, was impressed because he's been around a lot of fake Christians. And I said, no, these people are different. You'll see. And he was very impressed. He had a great time. He enjoyed it very much. Okay, Larson Holmes says they got to run. I guess I need to get off here too. Ben has finished our porch outside. We've got our deck finished, and he's working on steps right now. So I told him I'd come out there and get some video of that. If anybody has any questions, Tranquil Waves, hey, you're a little bit late. We've been on here for 40 minutes. If anybody has any questions about milk cows or meat cows, you can email me. Go to the homesteadmama.org website and hit the contact us form. That goes to my personal email. Yes, Ben is tall. That's another thing I'm going to talk about in doing a milk cow. He was raised on a dairy farm, and him and all of his brothers are 6'5" and 6'6". So they drank raw milk. That's why they're so... When your body gets all the nutrients that it needs to reach its full potential, you're working on a whole different scale of nutrition versus what our processed food is putting into us right now. So Ben is a testimony to raw milk. That's all I got to say. And he's 6'6", and his reach is almost 10 feet tall. So his arms are extremely long, but anyway, him and his family, his brothers, they were all raised on raw milk because they had a dairy farm. So I don't know. I'll do another video on raising your own milk cows. I'll have to get some more information from his daddy too, because being a dairy farmer for years and years, we get our raw milk from Brown Swiss cows. Papa Truck, I don't know where you are, but one of my best friends is a Mennonite, and she milks Brown Swiss, and she's in Whiteville, Tennessee. And so I don't know if that's who you're getting yours from, but that's where we got our raw milk for years and years, was from her before we started milking our own cows. I'm going to get off here, and I'm going to get my baby building us some steps for our porch. And so those videos will be posted on the other channel later. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We don't do commercials, but if you want to check out our website, homesteadmama.org, that's where all of our natural products are. Oh, yes, we should do an interview with Ben's daddy. That is a great... He is very private. He may not do that. He may not, but I'll ask him. He's a hoot, and he doesn't hold back, so I don't know. Thank y'all very much for joining us. Check out our website, homesteadmama.org, and we have a sale on our frankincense right now. $55. Thank you, everybody who came in. I appreciate your support. I'm so glad to meet y'all at the gathering. Y'all have a good day.